Hi, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kayla and I like to talk about books. So today let's talk about some books. Today I want to talk about the book Good Rich People by Eliza Jane Brazier. I'm not entirely sure how to say her name, but this is her second book that she's written. It's the only book I've read by her, but apparently her first book is actually supposed to be quite a bit better, which maybe I'll try reading it. I'm kind of inspired to, even though I'll be upfront right now, I didn't really enjoy this book that much, but I'm obviously going to talk about it a little bit more. I'm going to start with a synopsis, like a brief synopsis, spoiler free, and then I'm going to go a little bit into my review. If I do mention spoilers, it probably won't be until like the very end, and I will definitely give ample warning as well as a timestamp down below to make sure that like if you want to read this, nothing is spoiled, because it's definitely like an ending you don't want spoiled. Without saying any more, let's get right into it. Oh my gosh, sorry, this is the better lighting, by the way. I tried to find an angle where I did not look like a sickly Victorian child, but no matter what the angle, that's exactly what I look like. I look like I'm gonna come out of bed in the middle of the night in a nightgown and be like, Mama, I don't feel well. Anyway, I look like a sickly Victorian child. It's just the way I've been looking these days, so that's fun. So this story follows two main point of view characters, Lila, who is the wife of Graham, a really wealthy man, and her stepmother is Margot, who is super wealthy, Graham's mother. And so Lila married into this family, and then the other point of view character is Demi, who is staying in their like guest house area that they rent out. And basically the premise of this story is that this really wealthy family has like a guest house area that they rent out to people who might like need a little bit of help. They don't usually pick like super actual needy people. They still pick people that are kind of within like their social, somewhat near to their social sphere. But yeah, they basically pick people who, an applicant for a tenant, and then they just like mess with this tenant. They do like weird like they mess with them psychologically. I don't even know how to explain it other than they just do like mind games and stuff like that. This is really kind of an interesting concept. I definitely think it's not like completely new. It kind of just gives me the same vibes as things we've seen before, like weird like Cruel Intentions kind of vibes, but like honestly not as good. So this is definitely not the newest concept, but it has a lot of potential. I do think unfortunately the author falls a little flat with it, but I'll get into that more later. Let's get back to Demi, who ends up being their tenant, and she is not the person that they think she is initially, and she essentially like sees an opportunity and like snatches it and ends up like under kind of false pretenses living in their rental. And this isn't anything that crazy. This is mostly stuff you would read on the back of the cover, but I won't really get into more other than that. So Demi has been living in poverty her entire life. She's been homeless recently, and she ends up living in this rental unit under like another identity, under the identity of another woman. So that's kind of just her setup, and obviously this family is trying to just like mess with her psychologically, but she has her own little trick up her sleeve kind of in a way, and it all just like builds and then culminates to obviously the climax, which I won't talk about, but maybe I'll talk about it a little bit later. I just kind of want to give like mostly a spoiler for your review. Yeah, let's get into the review because I kind of can't really contain my thoughts on this. So let's talk about it. I think that the idea, as I said, is it's not the most original idea, but it definitely has a lot of potential to be a very interesting concept. Unfortunately, I believe that the author takes it a little bit too far out of the realm of like what is realistic. Now, there's no denying that the hyper elite in our country and lots of places, I guess, all over the world, there's no denying that the hyper elite have these like crazy secret things that they do. Obviously, you know, there's the Epsteins and all of that stuff. Like there's crazy stuff going on with the hyper elites. But this just feels like weird. It felt like an episode of Gossip Girl, but actually kind of not as well written, if that makes sense. Like, it felt like an episode of Gossip Girl with less fleshed out characters, which is not a great thing to be. I don't really know how to explain it. Like, Lila married into this family. She talks a lot about like her insecurity in relation to her marriage and in relation to her mother-in-law, but outside of that, there isn't a lot of character identity or anything that we know about Lila. And I understand that she's probably suffered a lot of like psychological issues and damage as a result of being in this family, but it seems really weird to me that there just wasn't any like that much more character development outside of that. And so it was kind of hard sometimes to sympathize with her. Demi was a pretty interesting character. She was definitely a little bit more fleshed out, but it's strange to me that Lila as a point of view character and someone that at least occasionally we're supposed to sympathize with, she just didn't have as much meat to her as I would expect a character like that to have. So that was definitely one of the biggest things that like threw me off. I think that as well, it felt just a little bit fragmented. And I'm not talking about the time jumps. So because of the two different point of views, there's sometimes like you're going back in time and forward in time and stuff like that with the different point of view characters. I actually like that. I think that's fine. I actually thought that made it a little bit more interesting. What I really didn't like though was that there just wasn't a cohesive thread or a statement or a message of the story. And don't get me wrong, not every story has to have like a moral message, but I feel like it needed something to have a connecting thread throughout all of it. And that something can't just be that like rich people are crazy because they have so much money. Like, that's not a good connecting thread. I don't really know what the point of the story was, I guess. And there was definitely there were definitely times where Lila and Demi, it seemed like there was like a female friendship kind of bond being forged, but there just wasn't enough time to develop that. And so it felt a little bit like random and sporadic when it happened. And again, like I said, because Lila was such an underdeveloped character, it seemed forced. And like that certainly was not enough to be like the common thread or the message throughout the book. I would be really confused if it were, because it just was not clear enough. So yeah, I think that this book had a lot of potential to be something really interesting. I think it could have gone in maybe even just a more realistic direction of some of the things that the hyper elite are truly up to, but instead it became cartoonish in its like lack of true character development and growth. There's a little bit from Demi, but like I feel like even just like Grandma Margot were so one-dimensional, which made them not that scary and not that threatening. Like, this was such a weird story, sort of, and I'm inclined, I haven't done my Goodreads review yet, but I'm inclined to give it honestly like 2 stars because it was just so underdeveloped as an idea, and I feel like the characters were very, very flat. So I just didn't love it. But let me talk about a couple of the things I did love, because some of the things I really did love were like there were a couple times where it was obviously meant to illustrate how out of touch like even Lila is. Even though she married into money, she's been like wealthy for so long, she's so out of touch. So there were times she talked about things like, I don't know, in the very beginning she like goes to the grocery store, and just like some of the comments she makes I thought were pretty funny because they're meant to like be over the top, like making fun of how wealthy people are out of touch. So I get that, and I thought that that was pretty funny sprinkled in. I think because some of the characters were really flat, like this humor, which was otherwise a pretty funny way to illustrate like how out of touch the wealthy elites are, even though it was a more over the top way to do that, it was pretty funny. In all, this book just felt like a misfire. It just felt like everything was a little bit off to me. I won't really talk too much about the ending. Some other positives that I can definitely say about this book was that the writing was pretty like immersive, and it was pretty interesting. I don't think that she's bad with her descriptions. I think her descriptions are good, especially descriptions of the house. You can picture that like pretty clearly, and that obviously always helps to like put you in the setting exciting and be very immersive when you're reading, which I appreciate. I love a good descriptive author because I often just want to be transported. But like I said, honestly, what's the point of being transported to the setting and that being so descriptive when the characters don't feel like people, kind of? So yeah, for that I'm just gonna say I would skip this one if I were you. If you're looking for a good thriller or a good mystery, like, this is not it. This was not a good thriller. It was not giving you the really good suspense. It wasn't really giving that much suspense. It just was weird because, like I said, unfortunately, because Graham and Margot were especially, and Lila, but because Graham and Margot were so like one-dimensional and such flat characters, it was kind of hard to like feel threatened by them or be that scared of them. Yeah, this was a misfire. For me, it's like a 2-star. It was okay. Like, I finished it, I guess. It wasn't completely terrible, but I just wouldn't recommend it if you're looking for kind of a unique, interesting thriller, which is what I kind of thought. I was like, oh, this will be fun, suspenseful, good thriller, a little mystery maybe. No, that's not what it is. You're not gonna get that here. I don't really have a lot more to say on this, honestly. I just didn't really like it. But let me know below if you've read this, what your thoughts are, and if you disagree with me, that's totally fine. I love when people disagree with me because really these are just, good books are just opinions. But anyway, that's gonna be it for this review. Please like, please subscribe if you want to, and yeah, I will see you later. Thank you so much for watching.